So let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why you're not getting people reaching out to you asking for your help when it comes down to listing their houses from your social media? Even though you are doing all the right things, you're posting on social media, you have a website, you have a drip campaign, you're doing all the things your broker tells you to do, but you're still not getting homeowners reaching out to you asking for your help from your social media. And you kind of end up frustrated and you're not realizing like what's going on, like why I'm not getting results, even though this other realtor is getting these listings coming from their social media. So in this video, we're gonna cover exactly why, so let's dive right into it. So this one time I remember when we started to work with one of our clients, he had done a lot of these things that you're kind of supposed to do, but was not getting any results out of it. He was buying Zillow leads, he was doing automated social media posting just sold, just listed, all these things that you're kind of supposed to do. He even had a drip campaign and everything else. And he was still not getting any listings coming through all of these efforts. He was getting some buyers here and here from Zillow leads, but not really any proper listings. So we hop on a call, and on the call he said like, hey, I'm a little uncertain about this whole social media thing. Like, I'm a little older, like, I don't know if people are really gonna resonate with me, or I don't know if my clients are gonna be on social media. So I told him like, hey, let's give it a shot. Like, just put in the effort. All I need from you is like, okay, just do what I say, and then let's see how it goes. If you don't get results, if it doesn't work for you, fine. You know, we'll give you a money back guarantee, no problem. You get your money back if that happens, but just give it a shot. I think it's gonna work for you. So we started to work with him, and I remember before all of his posts, everything he was doing on social media was very, very kind of like generic, and it was very, very like real estate based. It was like just sold, just listed, some sort of market statistic, and maybe like his website that went to the landing page, and maybe they gathered like an email address or something like that. The marketing we did first was actually completely opposite of what he was doing before. So we actually told a story, a brand story about his personal life. We told about where he grew up in. So he actually grew up in California. And then we talked about how he moved to the area where he lives now and where he's been doing a real estate agent now, which is now in Oregon. And then we talked about like his personal hobbies. We talked about his fishing hobby. We talked about different things he's doing in the area, different values he has, how long he's been a realtor, and what kind of motivates him on a deeper level to be a real estate agent. And I still remember when we made as an example that fishing post. It was one of his first posts. Before, he was getting really no traction at all on social media, maybe 1, 2 likes or something like that, 1 or 2 comments. But this first couple posts, he already got like 100, 200 engagements, and he was like, wow. Like all these people seeing these posts now, all these people reacting to them. And even a month later, he was already having people reaching out to him. And 2 months later, he had already closed on multiple deals. Now, the point of this story is that like he was thinking, okay, in order for me to get a lot of listings from social media, right, I would have to be very, very professional. I'd have to have this suit. I would have to have these listings going out. I'd have to have these statistics going on. But at the end of the day, what people resonated with was really the fact that he was a human being, right? He was going on fishing trips. He was from California. He moved to Bend, right? And all these different things, like what motivated him on to be a realtor on a deeper level. And that's really the thing that got people to look at the post, read through the post, engage with the post, and ultimately reach out to him asking for his help to list their houses. And I remember we went through the whole process, so we set everything up on a more advanced level once we get to the scaling part. And a year later, he had already closed on over 30 transactions from his social media. So that's just how powerful storytelling can be, and that kind of like little shift going from that just another real estate agent to going into building your personal brand. So let's talk about why this happens and why a story about fishing gets a lot more likes and engagement than compared to a real estate post that's on a surface level more insightful than that fishing story trip. And why some realtors get thousands and thousands of people to see their posts, while some people have no engagement, no views at all. And this is something interesting I noticed myself when I looked at the best realtors in the world, the most famous realtors in the world. When you look at Ryan Sherhand as an example, he has this all knowledge, all this expertise, all this money, all this fame, right? But he still tells stories about how he maybe got embarrassed on a trip, or how he maybe got embarrassed when he was doing this transaction, right? So I was always wondering, what is the point behind telling these kind of embarrassing or personal stories stories and why all these success people really tell them, right? Why you look at Grant Cardone, why does he talk about the fishing trip, right? Why are all these people talking about these stories? So I looked deeper into it. I studied it for years and read a lot of books, a lot of things, and a lot of scientific studies. And these are the three main things I've kind of noticed. First one being evolutionary perspective. So what I mean by this is like, if you think about our brains, they're thousands and thousands of years old. Even though our current civilization is very advanced, our brains are still very, very old. And because of that reason, our brains work in a specific way. So think about thousands and thousands of years ago when you walked and met a human being and they told you a story. Hey, I was walking on this path and this tiger came and just ate me or was trying to fight me, right? And then I got the tiger off and survived here. Obviously, it was crucial for you to remember that story, right? Or the same goes for food, right? I was walking down this path and turned right and found some berries. This is a good berry spot. And so people that really were able to remember these details, remember these stories, they survived. And there's an evolutionary perspective as to why we tend to remember these stories really, really well, while just giving information or just logical things, right? They're kind of like easily forgotten. And the second part is really the emotional connection. So a lot of the times if I tell you like, okay, I got our client a listing, right? You're gonna feel a certain way, right? Okay, cool, he got a listing. But if I tell you a story, just like I told you at the beginning of this video, you're gonna feel a certain emotional connection to that person. And whenever there's strong emotions, there's anger, there's hate, there's love, there's drama, right? People tend to remember those moments a lot better. People tend to remember those details a lot better. And so as we tell these different stories, whether it be that fishing trip or whether it be that Ryan Sherhan's kind of deal where he traveled to a certain place, we start to relate to these characters, we start to relate to these people because the way our brains processes these stories is that they picture ourselves into that situation and then project that onto that story. So the second layer is the emotional connection. Imagine when you have thousands and thousands of people going through this process where they imagine themselves to be in that same situation as you're gonna have a very, very powerful emotional connection created very, very quickly, and that's gonna allow you to create that deeper relationships, which is essential to have that trust for essential real estate transaction later on down the road. Now, the third point is relatability. So I still remember when I had one of the first sales calls in the United States with one of the real estate agents we onboarded. We had the sales call, and at the end of the sales call, I learned from one of the first sales jobs I ever had that you always wanted to ask the customer, why did you decide to purchase this, right? What was the main reason? And then I asked that question from him and he told me that the biggest reason he decided to purchase was because our marketing was more relatable. And at that point, I had no idea what he means. I was just thinking like, okay, these posts are gonna get you a lot of views, they're gonna get you a lot of listings, right? All these things, but I wasn't thinking in terms of relatability. Now, later on, once I got deeper into marketing, deeper into working with over 400 different clients at this point, I fully understood what relatability means because a lot of the times when you go into real estate agent's page, you see a lot of statistics, you see a lot of just posts just listed, maybe you see different things and you can't really get a good grasp about who this person is. Like what do they value? What are their interests? Like who is this person in general? And it's very, very difficult to work with somebody if you have no idea who that is. And so because of that reason, when I started to think about these things, I started thinking about, again, Ryan Sherhan's different stories or Grant Cardone's different stories. And I started to go deeper into it, and I realized that when you are able to relate to somebody, it creates that trust, but most importantly, it makes the information a lot more valuable. Because when you think about different statistics or you think about different rational things you could say, at the end of the day, you can find all these things online. But what makes that information more valuable is when you can package it into a format where a lot of people can understand it. And when you tell different stories, you're able to package that into a format that a lot of people can really grasp and understand. So at this point of the video, you probably understand really why is it important to tell brand stories and why is it really important to build your brand. And you look at companies like Coca-Cola or Apple, you immediately get stories in your mind. You remember the Coca-Cola recipe, you remember the Coca-Cola Santa Claus, you also remember Apple's story from the garage when Steve Jobs was building the first couple Apple computers in the garage back in California, right? And all these different stories start to come to your mind. You even think about like Apple's different advertisements, such as the advertisement with the guy running with the spear and throwing it to the wall, right? Back in 1984, you immediately start to recall and start to notice there's all these brand stories that these big, massive, multi-billion-dollar or trillion-dollar companies are being built on. So at this point, you should have a really good idea about that, but you're probably wondering, well, how do I actually go about telling these stories and what kind of stories I should be telling in the first place? So let's cover a couple of these. First thing, I believe that's one of the most powerful stories you can really tell is actually maybe challenging moments you've had in your life, or challenging moments you've had as in your career as a real estate agent. And these are one of the most hardest things to tell, because most people, they don't want to put themselves out there in terms of showing their weaknesses or showing their hard moments, right? And so a lot of the times it takes that initial little realization that that hard transaction or that hard thing that happened to you may be actually a good thing to tell or a good thing to share. And this reminds me of Ryan Shuren's story, where, for example, he had this deal with this guy. I don't remember the country anymore, but maybe it was India or maybe it was Dubai, but it was completely another country, and the guy just wouldn't respond to him. It was a multi-million-dollar deal. We're just about to close. And Ryan actually flew, I remember, again, to India or Dubai. He just flew there and started to meet the guy, and the guy actually met him, and they closed on the transaction back in New York. So really, as example, that's like one of the best things you can tell, right? Is those challenging moments, challenging transactions, challenging deals, and really then turn it at the end of the story, obviously tell the lessons you learned or some of the insights you learned. And really, if you're able to tell those types of stories, people are able to obviously see that you're the type of person that kind of go through those things. But again, most importantly, trust you a lot more, because showing that vulnerability, showing that personal side, obviously is something that most people are not willing to do. So when you actually do show it, it shows massive strength in your character and in trusting yourself. So for example, the way I would tell a challenging transaction story is, first I would talk about the beginning, right? I would talk about, hey, this person reached out to me through email. They were interested in selling their house in Hoboken, New Jersey. The house was about $700,000, and then the person told me, hey, I'm interested in you selling my house. So that's why we met. We had a phone call, and then from there, now we're in the middle. So we had a phone call, and then from there we scheduled a listing appointment. So when I got to the listing appointment, the house looked very nice, but when I noticed on the walls, there was something green, there was something odd, and there was a smell that was not familiar to me. Right? Now we're in the middle. Now we get to the end. So the seller didn't want to disclose that there was green stuff on the walls. The seller didn't want to tell that in the actual listing, even though I told him that it's not recommended to sell their houses like that. So because of that reason, I decided to end up turning that transaction down, because I didn't want to sell a product that would not be ethical to sell. Right? Now, when we got off the listing appointment, a week later, the seller reached out to me, and they actually agreed that we actually fix the house, get it in proper condition, and go through a proper process when it comes down to selling that house. So that just goes to show how important it is to be honest, loyal, and have that good integrity. Now the house sold over the asking price. The seller easily made their commission from my services and from the house back. Now, this is an example of a story I just made up literally right now on this video. And as you can see, we had 3 steps to it. All we needed was the beginning, then we just needed the middle, and then we needed an end. And this is exactly the way I go about getting my clients more stories. I literally just ask them, like, what happened? Tell me a story, right? And they usually just start talking, and I'm like, hey, that's all you need to do in your post. Just write the same thing or record the same thing and put it out there. You don't need to have anything else to make a great story. So that's exactly how you go about telling these stories. So really, it's not super complicated. All you need is a beginning, middle, and an end. And then you want to tell it from a first-person perspective. So tell exactly how it happened, or tell exactly how it was from that first person's perspective when it came down to that story. Now let's cover some of the other stories you can tell. One of the best working stories that I've seen work are really historical stories. So talk about the local neighborhood and talk about the local history behind that neighborhood. Tell different stories about that. Also, another good story that I can share with you as well are stories from the pivotal moments that shaped you to become a certain type of a person you are today. Maybe there's a certain value you have, maybe there's a certain principle you have in your work or in your personal life. If you can tell that story where you kind of realize that happened to you, that's also one of the most powerful ways to spark that relatability and connection with other people. Also, what I like myself as well is really personal stories about personal experiences, again, from buying or selling maybe your own house, or buying or selling maybe your first house. Those are really good ones as well, because with those there's a lot of new things that are going on. Also, local community stories are very, very powerful. So if you have somebody who you know, maybe it's your friend, or maybe it's your daughter, maybe it's somebody you know from somewhere. It's somebody else you know that's also from the local community, and something happened to them that kind of caused a certain situation to happen, right? tell that story, talk about them and tell that story, and then give your own twist to it. Those are also some of the most engaged posts right now on Facebook when it comes down to Facebook groups. A lot of these stories are being told there, right, and get amazing engagement. So those are some of the stories I would tell. Now, this framework for storytelling can be used literally for anything. So go out there right now to your Facebook, go to your social media, tell a story, see how it goes, and I promise you, if you do it the correct way, you're gonna see massive results. Okay, so that's the framework. Go out there and use it. Make a story right now. Go to your Facebook, tell it, and see the results for yourself. By the way, this is a new type of video we're actually recording right now. It's the first time ever we recorded outside like this. We're at the AI conference in Tokyo, and we're here at the layover flight here in Seoul, Korea, actually. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and you found it valuable. If you found it valuable, leave a comment down below, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.